Hello, 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 and welcome back to Conversations with JR. I hope all is well with my audience and my listeners. And we are at the end of March, and I know that everyone is anticipating warmer weather so that we can get outdoors, spread out, relieve some stress, and just breathe. So I am so looking forward to that. Today's topic, communication. Yes, you heard me, communication. Now, call it what you like. Talking, conversation, discussion, chatting, gossiping, or having a dialogue. I know what you're thinking. Now, come on, this is Conversations with JR. What do you mean communication? Just that, communication. I say people are not having meaningful conversations anymore. Now, there seems to be a lot of chatting and talking and discussions and dialogues and gossiping going on. But ask yourself a question. Is that real meaningful conversation that's going on? There seems to be, well, not seems to be, but there is so many means of communication now since the improvement of technology. But again, let me ask you the question. Using your technology, how meaningful is your conversation? The Webster Dictionary defines communication as a process by which information and thoughts and feelings and emotion in exchange between individuals, two people, three people, a group, have you. Okay, fair enough. However, what I am referring to is the lack of a meaningful exchange of ideas, information, thoughts, and communication. Now, some people, I'm not going to say all people, but for me, I'm observant. I see the majority of people, what they're doing is that they're hiding behind social media by sending instant messages, texting, email. I even see people recording videos of themselves and sending it, and recording voice messages and sending it to people. This is replacing the face-to-face, in-person connection. Now, I know that we cannot be face-to-face with all our families and friends and loved ones all the time. What I am asking you to consider today while you are listening to this podcast is how meaningful your communication is when you are connecting with that loved one, family and friends and co-workers. How meaningful is that conversation? You know, another thing, when we are texting and we're sending texts and messages and IMs and emails, let me ask you this question. How many times have you sent an email, a text, an IM, a voicemail, and someone had to actually literally call you to verbally confirm, verbally clarify what is it that you mean? Because nowadays, when people are reading these texts and instant messages and listening to these video calls and everything, sometimes the communication or the meaning of what we want to say gets lost or gets taken out of context. And then everybody gets upset and everybody gets angry because you meant to say, but they didn't get it that way. Because why? The lack of face-to-face or on the phone verbal communication. Relationships and dating and communication is becoming more and more complicated than it needs to be. You know, some relationship experts, they warn women that if a man is only texting her and not calling her, this means that he is either married or have a girlfriend or have another side chick and you just somebody else that he's adding to his belt. But could it mean that this man really hasn't been taught because everyone is texting, that he hasn't really taken into consideration, well, she may want a phone call from me. Because we are in this age where we are not verbally communicating with anyone anymore. We think that it is okay to just shoot somebody off a text, and maybe that's just all they want from us. I have observed date nights out, girls' nights out, men's night out, when people are constantly checking their cell phone for communicating with other people. But what about the people that are sitting right in front of you? What about the communication and the respect that you owe them to give them your undivided attention while you're in their presence? I've seen people who say, oh, wait, I have to take this almost important call. But why is it that every time, think about it, you're meeting face to face with someone, that they always have to take an important call, or they always have to check their messages? What does that say about you being in their presence and the lack of communication and respect that this person is supposed to be showing to you? Now, let's not forget these emojis. Yeah, they're cute. Everything is all right with these emojis, okay? But are we using, or are people using emojis in their communication just to be using them? Do they really, I heart you? Are they using these emojis to hide behind something or fake something? Think about the next time that you want to use an emoji. What are you really using it for? And what are you really using it to communicate that you cannot use words to do so? Oh, and here's the big one. People are no longer spelling words out completely when they are communicating with you through email, text, and instant messages. Everything now is an acronym or a shortcut, because it takes too long for me to say what it is that I really need to say to you. So I'm just going to use these acronyms and these shortcuts. How many times have you done that and someone texts you back in full text, what do you mean? And then you're on the other side, SMH, shaking your head. Because everybody's not connected to these acronyms, and everybody's not using emojis. Okay? Some people like to text fully. Some people like to explain themselves. Some people like to pick up the phone and call you. You notice this. And I know everybody gets frustrated with this because I hear it all the time. You text someone, and then 2 minutes later, after you receive the text, you call them, and they don't answer the phone. Think about that. What is that all about? You just text me. Not even 1 minute, not even 5 minutes. I received the text. 3 seconds later, I pick up the phone. I call you for clarification, and you do not answer the phone. We need to think about what it is with these devices and technology that we are using to avoid communicating, talking, conversing to one another. I remember when dinner conversation or going out relaxing with friends at a lounge was so engaging, so inviting, that you would hear people say, wasn't that a good conversation? That was a great topic. Hey, let's meet up and do this again, because we don't do this very often. Now people don't do that anymore. They get together, but they're barely present because they're too busy communicating on their device with other people. And I think that's really disrespectful. Another thing about these shortcuts and using these emojis, the harm that it causes to our young children and teenagers who are in school. Do you know that when they use these emojis and when they use these shortcuts, when they're texting and sending messages, that it takes away from their ability to write out full sentences, to develop skills? No, I guess you didn't think about that. Communication in the workplace. Since the pandemic, let me tell you, communication in the workplace is being reduced to sending emails, text messages. And since the pandemic, we have become accustomed in the workplace to Zoom meetings, that reconnecting in person is going to be something of the past. Because now people, even though a lot of people back in their office, they still want to do Zoom meetings. And even though it could be 6 people at a meeting, we can spread out, wear a mask, spread out. But people still want to sit in their office and have the convenience of Zoom. But let me tell you what Zoom now is doing. You know, it was good. It was a useful tool, and it still is a useful tool. But let me tell you what Zoom is doing now. It takes away the camaraderie. It takes away the interpersonal relationship building, team building. Now I know there's a lot of people who go to meetings in the workplace, who go to meetings in the church, who go to meetings in different organizations, and in their mind they're like, oh God, not another boring meeting. Oh my God, I can't stand so and so because they talk so much during the meeting. I understand all that. But just think about not meeting in person, what it really has taken away from us, that physical camaraderie, that physical connection, being able to look people in the face, being able to read people's body language. Just think about that. Communication in the home, what an abomination. Yeah, I said that. What an abomination. Communication in the home has become fighting, yelling, arguing, silence, non-existence, whatever. That's communication at home. Think about it the next time you're home. Pay attention to the way you are communicating with your spouse, communicating with your children. All the devices is on. The TV is on. Nobody's really paying attention. People are yelling. The music is loud. The TV is loud. But the communication, I'm talking about the communication. So I'm going to give you an example. Here's the communication between the partners when they get home. How was your day, dear? It was okay. What did you do? Nothing much. Now, you've been away from your home all day. You have not seen your spouse. You probably text them throughout the day, so you think that is meaningful conversation, and you do not need to have any type of conversation with your spouse at home because you see them every day. So that's how it goes. Or it goes something like this. Continued conversation between partners at home. How was your day? Over. And I don't want to talk about it. I'm tired and I want to be left alone. Now, one or two things is going to happen with that type of communication. Either it's going to start an argument, or she's going to shut down, or he's going to go in another room, and it is over with. It is over with. This is some of the ways that, and you hear it and you know it, that partners are communicating or venting, not expressing themselves at home. So here is another scenario about communication between parents and children. I love this one. Here it goes. How was your day? It was okay. What did you do? Nothing. Now, your child has been in school basically all day. Probably went to an after-school program, an after-school activity, joined up with some friends maybe and had some pizza. And they come home and they tell you, as a parent, you ask them, what did you do today? And they say nothing. So they did nothing in school all day. They did nothing in the after-school program. They did nothing with their friends. And guess what, listeners? There are a lot of parents who are okay with this type of communication. Think about the next time you try to have a conversation with your children at home. Think about what I'm saying. Wives are not allowed to talk to their husbands while the husband is avoiding them while he is watching TV. Women are shutting their husbands down because they're too busy looking at reality TV shows to communicate with their husbands, because the reality TV show is more important than talking about important things that need to be talked about in the home. And that's another thing about the lack of communication. Nobody is talking about the important things that need to be talking about. At least they're not talking about it to each other. They're talking about it to other people. They're complaining about it to other people when you need to be talking about the people that is involved. That's what's happening. Remember that song by James Brown, Talking Loud and Saying Nothing? A lot of talking is going on. But is it meaningful, and what are people saying? And in the morning, homes are so chaotic and they're so loud and they're so, they're so disorganized that everybody's rushing to get out to work and everybody's rushing to get out to school, and there's no routine and no one has no time to say anything nice to anyone, let alone say have a nice day, let alone to say a prayer, let alone to set the tone to have a positive day. Now here's the kicker to that one. How many times, God forbid, have you saw in the news, have you know a friend, have you heard of this, that a spouse or a child leaves the house and the next thing they meet an untimely incident, God forbid, and the first thing you hear a person say is that I did not get a chance to tell that person that I love them, or the last words that we had to each other was harsh. We had an argument. We weren't talking. She or he was giving me the silent treatment. And you live with that regret for the rest of your life. Now, I don't mean to be petty, and I'm not ranting here. What I'm trying to do with Conversations with JR is bring awareness to something that is so common, something that we use every single day: language, communication, conversation. But I'm trying to get people to see that the lack of meaningful conversation, not that gossiping, not that texting, not that he say, she say, they say that. I'm talking about real meaningful conversation. Some of my most cherished memories are the stories shared by my grandmother, my grandfather, my father, my aunts, my uncles, all the elders of the family. Back in the day when they used to share a story, everybody listened. Because it was engaging conversation. It was meaningful. It was meaning behind the stories that they told us. And we carried those stories with us and we shared them. Now, no one wants to hear anything that anybody has to say. We need to understand that the lack of meaning conversation leads to misunderstanding. That's what happens. It leads to misunderstanding. I live alone. By choice, I live alone. And there is no one in the house to have any kind of meaningful conversations with. So I journal a lot. I talk out loud a lot. But for me, when I'm engaged with people and when I go out and meet up with people, I make sure that I am with people that I can have meaningful, encouraging conversations with, because it means something to me. And the people that I am with mean something to me. So, we all have that one person in our lives that we always say that I wish so-and-so was here so that I can talk to them. Think about the people that is in your life right now and that you can talk to them and have meaningful conversations with them. Ladies, when your spouse is talking to you, listen to him. Please listen to him. Don't shut him down. Don't bite his head off. Just be open and listen. Gentlemen, when your missy is talking to you, don't take it as, oh, here she go again, talking. She needs to connect with you. She wants to make a meaningful connection to you through conversation. Mothers and fathers, the next time your children are talking to you, stop what you're doing. Listen to them, for what they have to say is very important. Communicate with them. Teach them meaningful expressions and meaningful communication. Let them know that what they have to say is important. Let them have some input on some of the family's decisions. Ask them what they feel. Ask them what they think. Let's not spend time with this chatting and this gossiping and carrying messages and negative things back and forth to people that's destroying people. That's not the way that we should be using our communication. Words have power. Words can destroy. Words can disrespect, but most of all, words can uplift. So let's use our conversations to uplift and to keep in touch, to keep in contact, Snapchat your grandmother and your grandfather. Let them see your face, but be engaged in that conversation. The next time you send a text message, send something meaningful. If you have to send an email, make sure that email is clear. If you have to send a voice message because you're in a situation where you have to do that because you cannot talk out loud, make sure the conversation is meaningful. Enough of this bickering and fighting and arguing over pettiness. Think about what I have to say to you. Thank you for joining Conversations with JR. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And the next time you engage in a conversation, make sure that it's meaningful. Conversations with JR can be found on all social media platforms. Don't forget to join and subscribe my YouTube channel. Like, click, share. Until the next time. Thank you for listening.